Stay home and keep your distance. Governments are telling their citizens to take precautions to try and contain the global pandemic under control, that is coronavirus. But this is leading to panic and a recess in global economies. So to talk about the global economic impact of COVID-19, Mr. Bernard Wanji now joins us on set. Hello, and thanks for being with us.
I'm happy to be here also.
So, first, we know that many countries are being affected now, many economies, as worries over coronavirus sweep through markets. Some regulators are beginning to push for trading to be curtailed, fearing swings in prices. And how badly do you think COVID-19 is going to affect economics, is affecting economies around the globe, because it's already in effect, already feeling the effects?
Well, if we talk specifically about the stock market, today, the Dow Jones in New York fell by 12% yesterday trading, which is one of the five largest drops in the history of the stock market. So the stock market is taking very seriously the problem of the epidemics. But at the same time, I do not think that it is the collapse of the global economy, because the stock market index, it reflects the activity during that day. If there is nobody to buy, nobody to purchase, then the activity will be low. For that reason, the index has fallen very sharply.
But how can we say there are no people who want to buy? When we look at the way things are going, we see people rushing to stock their homes or stock their factories or maybe their supermarkets. So what is happening?
Well, I think that there should be an exercise of communication globally for people not to panic and to go to stores and stock goods and food at home, because the situation has not reached that level. Of course, people should not move too much. Do not go out of your house if it is not really necessary. But it's not reason, to go and buy stockpiles of food and water or whatever, to put in the house.
So the fact that countries are going on a financial stimulus, like the US cutting interest rates, Canada, Germany, don't you think that global coordination of monetary, fiscal, trade and exchange rates policies is needed, like the G2, the G7 and G20?
Okay, this reminds us of the previous financial crisis, the Lehman Brothers crisis in 2008, which was really a financial problem. The cause was a banking and financial problem. And at that time, it was necessary to have a global coordination under the leadership of Mr. Dominique Strauss-Kahn, a friend of mine. And then we were able to come out with a proper solution, with one of the solutions being to cut interest rate, to reduce the price of petroleum, so that inflation expectations will also be reduced. But this time, do not have macroeconomic causes. It's only psychological. It's more psychological than financial. So when I see some of the central banks trying to cut rate or to pour in more money into the monetary system, I think that it will have no effect. That's my personal opinion. The best course of action today is to shut down the stock market.
So to you think that the best action is to shut down the stock exchange?
Yes, to shut down the stock exchange.
But why?
For a few days, and then to allow the medical personnel and the scientists to bring the appropriate answer to the virus.
Why do you think so?
No, because you cannot solve the problem of the virus with monetary solutions and interest rate. The interest rate adjustment does not address the monetary cause, the medical cause of the virus. So I think that there are two separate issues. If people feel that they cannot go to the market to buy and sell, then you shut down the stock market and allow the medical personnel and the scientists to work out on the virus.
Now let's talk about us Africans, the African economy. I'll screw it down to Cameroon. Do you think you've worked with the economy sector and the financial sector in Cameroon? Do you think that our businesses, our small and medium-sized enterprises are ready for this chaos?
Well, when you look at the gross domestic product of Cameroon, GDP, you have maybe around 20% which comes from the industrial output, 35% from the agricultural production, and then you have the bulk, which comes from services, around 40%. Personally, I do not see a reason why agricultural production should fall because of the virus.
Okay, so what?
Yes. And speaking about the industrial output, I think that the factories are still open, and the workers are going to work to the factory. So I do not expect a drop in the industrial output.
But
then you have problems in branches, in the services such as tourism, leisure, entertainment, stadium, football, and things like that, and transport, intercity transport, which are now banned. And then there is a ban on large gathering of people in leisure places. Then these sectors will experience a significant drop in their revenues, but not sufficient to put them out of business.
So what will you tell them? What's your advice on managing this situation?
Well, for those sectors, leisure, because here our tourism sector does not impact our economy like in Spain or in Italy. Mm-hmm. You know very well that Portugal, Spain, Greece, these are countries that live from tourism. And tourism sector in Cameroon does not contribute more than 3% to GDP formation. So we cannot take the actions that have been taken in Italy and Greece and try to impose them upon our own system. Our own system can be resilient because you will see have the same agricultural output, industrial output, and some of the services that are still running. So you do not, I don't expect a serious disruption in our GDP or production during the next few years, the next few months.
But you don't expect, I was trying to say that we are in a period where a lot of things will be restricted. What will you want them, or what should we expect from our manufacturers or our businessmen to do in order to keep our economy working? Because we are still struggling to grow.
Yes, we are still struggling to grow, but we are talking about the impact of the virus.
Yeah.
People will continue to eat. People will continue to buy food and to buy some amenities, okay, whether there is virus or not. Because our economy has not yet reached the stage of France or United States, where it is important to have a very competitive basketball season, or France, where you have a Champions League in soccer and football. All these events are cancelled and doing great damage to France, Italy, and Britain. But here, since we are still at the level of really survival, mere survival, there is not much impact of the virus on our economy. I reached the same conclusion in 2008 when we were talking about the worldwide financial crisis, and it turned out that I was right. The 2008 financial crisis did not really impact the African economies.
Okay, even when people have been asking that even when factories will ramp up production, we're talking globally, and there are no more questions about the impact of coronavirus, but people feel like, do you think customers will still want to buy?
When you speak about the impact of coronavirus, sometimes some people look at the industrial relations, because as per the industrial relations, we buy most of the inputs or finished goods from China, a country that is badly hurt by the virus. But at that stage, the trade with Africa is marginal. Of course, it brings $10 billion, $50 billion to China on a yearly basis, but it's marginal, you see. So we still find ways here in Africa to get the proper supply chain, to buy the goods, and then to buy the furniture, and then to buy the spare parts that we need to have our factories running. So again, unless we have a pandemic that lasts for 12 months or 15 months, it will not really impact our economic growth. Let me give you another example, which is not very far. You remember the Ebola virus?
Yes.
It was on the air for at least 2 to 3 years, from 2014 to 2016. And we take a country that was at the center of the virus Ebola, a country like Sierra Leone. The GDP of Sierra Leone dropped only 2 percentage points, from 5% on a yearly basis to 3%. And then after 2 to 3 years, after they were able to overcome the virus, and then they started to grow again. So even the country like Sierra Leone, which is a small economy comparable to ours, that was badly because in Sierra Leone you had about 27,000 persons that were affected by the virus, who were sick. 27,000 persons. And out of that, maybe 6,000 to 7,000 deaths. Sierra Leone GDP dropped only by 2 percentage points, from 5% to 3%. So I don't see a reason why Cameroon's economy should drop from 5% today to minus 5%.
Okay, so you're the expert here. Which of the economies around the globe will be hit the hardest? We know China is already suffering from it, but which other, even in the African continent?
No, there are countries that are really vulnerable to travel and to leisure. I mentioned already Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece. They are really vulnerable. And then in other countries in Western Europe, like Italy, Germany, the sectors that will be affected are the leisure sectors: soccer, Formula racing, and music, entertainment. Well, I cannot tell you today to which extent, but the drop in GDP in those countries should not be more than 3 to 4 percentage points.
And what about our neighboring Nigeria?
Well, it's very strange. I've not heard much from Nigeria. Since I've not heard a policy pronouncement from the government of Nigeria. I watched the video by the president of South Africa, Mr. Ramaphosa, but I have not seen any policy pronouncement for Nigeria. I don't know if but for sure they are taking the crisis, the virus, very seriously, but I cannot say anything about what they are doing or what they intend to do. So,
any perspective for us before we take a leave of you?
Well, I think that the government of Cameroon has taken the proper course of action. The Prime Minister, he came out yesterday with a very strong policy statement, and we have to encourage him. Personally, I saw him in action when he conducted the Grand National Dialogue, and this is yet another test for him, to prove his leadership, Mr. Joseph Dioguti. Part of the measures that were adopted by the government, some of them, to me, look too much. They did not need to go so far. But yet we have to show to the face of the world, we have to show to our partners that we have taken the issue very seriously, that we have taken stringent measures to address the issues, because if the virus comes from the north, we have to show them that we are also affected, even emotionally, because so far in Cameroon you only have 4 cases. In South Africa you have 62 cases, compared to 1,000 cases in Iran, so 27,000 cases in Italy. So 4 cases in Cameroon. I think that the measure that we have taken seem to be like you want to use a machine gun to kill a fly. But yet we had to take those measures to show that we are living on the global sphere, and that when there are problems in our partner countries, we also feel concerned, and we want to accompany them in trying to solve the problems.
Okay, thank you very much, Bernard Wanji, for your perspectives, and we hope to have you for more programs on CRTV News.
Okay, it's my pleasure too.
Well, thanks for staying with us today on Focus on International News Stories. We want to thank all those who contributed to today's program, and for BBC for their feature stories. Take a rendezvous tomorrow with Tatiana Ombede. I'll see you on Friday.